need to kill this thing, or it will kill us.
It's not like anything I've ever seen.
Flesh Wounds, aka Mission Commando, aka Predator versus Soldier. This is directed by Dan Garcia and is a 2011 movie that might sound a little familiar, so stop me if you've heard this one. A crack group of military experts, led by a recognisable action hero actor, are sent to a remote jungle with a pretense of rescuing some downed scientists and American personnel. They are accompanied by a CIA agent, however they are sent there under false pretenses. Once they get to the jungle, they encounter a group of human resistance, which they take care of to show their prowess in battle. However, that is not their main problem. There is a science fiction type entity with cutting edge technology, laser weapons, who is tracking them using a kind of special vision, and this science fiction entity is hunting this group one by one until we get down to our lone action hero on a mano battle. Sound familiar? Oh yes, this is Predator, if it cost 1/100th of the budget. So yes, Flesh Wounds. This one stars Kevin Sorbo and Bokeem Woodbine, and is effectively a very low budget remake of Predator, right down to literally recreating scenes from Predator verbatim, more or less. So that is your basic premise here. What can I say that works in this movie's favour? Now, let's just kind of address the elephant in the room. Yes, this is an absolute rip-off of Predator, but let's pretend you haven't seen Predator. You might enjoy this one just for the fairly kind of interesting story and fun idea that Predator was. So yes, it is a carbon copy, but in its own merits, it's still a kind of a fun story, if you can kind of accept that. Or maybe you don't care if it's a Predator, but maybe you just love that story. Then you will enjoy this one. I will say, I think the movie actually does have some good things about it. I think the fact here that they use a lot of practical blood squibs, that might sound like a very specific thing, but I was quite impressed that we do see quite a lot of like bullets going through people and blood coming out, all done sort of practically. And for 2011, obviously, this is when we, used to, CGI was somewhat prevalent at this point. But yeah, they've used practical effects here, and I quite appreciate some of the kind of the bloody impacts that some of these people have. There's that. I quite like Bokeem Woodbine's character, who's kind of playing the Mac, Bill Duke character from Predator, who sort of starts to kind of lose it. I actually thought he seemed to be taking this movie pretty seriously, and I kind of believed him as this kind of this soldier who was sort of not dealing with this kind of situation particularly well. The movie does try and have an element here of one of the soldiers suffering with PTSD, which maybe is the only thing that isn't really in the kind of the Predator movie. It's the one element maybe that is a little bit new here. It doesn't really lead too much, to be honest with you, but nonetheless, it's something that they haven't kind of introduced. There is a lot of action in this movie. There's no doubt about that. If you wanted a kind of somewhat adrenaline-fueled science fiction action film, there's plenty of kind of shootouts here. Don't be expecting the level of production value from Predator, but yeah, there is quite a few shootouts and hand-to-hand combat situations and things. I quite like the music. It's very reminiscent of Predator, but I still kind of quite like the kind of the music here. And our Predator, shall we say, the one thing that, again, they maybe try to do a little bit different. It's not an alien, it's a cyborg, which is a kind of a military experiment. But for all intents and purposes, it's a kind of it acts the same way as the kind of the actual Predator does, but they tried to make it like a government experiment that have gone wrong. There's a degree of trying to make it their own thing, but you know, not by much, to be honest. It's okay in regards to its kind of the way it's shot, cinematography, things like that. We're meant to believe this is some kind of foreign jungle somewhere. It looks like it's just kind of filmed down the road, but you know, it's not. It's filmed. The camera work is acceptable for this kind of level of movie. Now, these might seem like I am really trying to have many positives here, but it is a kind of, despite it being such a rip-off of Predator, you know, it still is an entertaining movie if you don't mind the kind of the low budgetness and the fact that it is just a rip-off. But let's sort of transition to what doesn't work. I mean, you have to sometimes question why make something that is a very kind of successful movie, a science fiction movie, and not really introduce much else to it, and just do a like a real low budget version of the same movie. Like I've said, they have copied scenes, dialogue from the original Predator. It doesn't make sense, really. I don't understand why you would do something so blatant, but it is what it is. So this movie is very low budget, and some of the kind of the aesthetic choices really do reflect that. So our team of military specialists, so we call them, just look like a bunch of guys. You know, they really don't look or act or are dressed like genuine kind of military personnel. Even kind of black ops or kind of like off-book mercenary types, they just look like a bunch of guys. And they're sort of, for example, the way they are going into this this jungle, we've got one guy, he's just wearing like a vest, like a wife beater, I don't know what you call it in America, like a small like sleeveless t-shirt, and he's got like 2 lines of camo paint on his face. I thought, what's that going to do? I mean, come on. I mean, it's just silly. Kevin Sorbo's character's got kind of long hair, and looks like he's wearing chinos. I mean, it's just like, there's real no effort to try and make this like these guys are actually kind of military personnel. They just don't look, they just like, right, what kind of local actors have we got that can play kind of macho men? And the other thing is the acting isn't good, and maybe with the exception of Bokeem Woodbine, everyone here is just kind of like doing their, let's do kind of macho, kind of like gruff guy stereotypes, and it's just like a bunch of people acting tough like they've seen on sort of 70s TV shows and things like that. Even Kevin Sorbo, who, you know, is an established actor with a kind of a long career, he really doesn't look like he's trying in this film. I mean, it's like, there's a couple of scenes where he's like screaming, he's like, It just doesn't look like he's really putting any real effort into this movie. I think you can just see it on his face. You're thinking, man, this is just like some cheap rip-off of Predator. This is where my career is now. You're just reading that expression on his kind of face here, and he just doesn't look like he cares one iota. The actual cyborg, very disappointing. It looks like the cyborg from Cyber Tracker, which is a Don the Dragon Wilson movie. It is rubbish. It's just this guy who's kind of painted like sort of grey. He's got like a little prop eyepiece and some like cables that are coming out of his back to kind of like metal wristbands, and that's your cyborg there, people. Very disappointing. And again, he just looks like some guy. But the way that like he roars like a kind of creature like Predator. He's like, has these like little ticking sounds like Predator. It's like, if it was a cyborg, surely he wouldn't be doing that. I mean, if it was a creature, you kind of get it, but like, he's just trying. Sometimes it doesn't make sense, even for the kind of the small changes that they have made here. Then it doesn't really make sense of the way this movie is sort of depicted. The gunfights, although relatively kind of plentiful, it's just kind of like, oh, let's have people hold guns in really awkward positions and sort of shoot over barrels and have a couple of cheap sort of petrol explosions. We'll have our human bad guys just sort of dressed in balaclavas or sort of, sort of things over their face, so he can reuse the same stuntmen, and they're just dehumanized kind of like faceless sort of bad guys. It's just not very. It's just not very good quality, if that makes sense. And the action, you can't really give any credit to the story. It's a fun one, but it is a blatant rip-off of Predator. Even the kind of some of the posters here, I think, are quite misleading because it doesn't have that level of design in regards to like this kind of this cyborg sort of creature. It's just a kind of like quite a shoddily made movie, to be honest. You can have a little bit of fun with it if you don't mind some just cheap, schlocky, throwaway movie crap. But ultimately, the actual, you know, the production is quick, it's cheap, it's not meant to be a decent quality. It was probably put out quickly because probably the Predators movie was coming out, you know, the third film and things like that, around that sort of time. So, you know, it's just effectively like a cheap mockbuster to a large degree. There is some enjoyability to be had if you don't mind trash movies, but I have to say, if you're being more critical about it, you've got to be realistic and say, yeah, it's not a particularly good movie in regards to its production and what the end product was. But I will give it I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10 because even though I think this is quite a poorly put together movie, there is still some enjoyment value to be had. But really, that's coming from the fact that this is copying Predator, and it's some of the things that you enjoyed about Predator. It's just kind of low budget versions of that. 4 out of 10 for me. Have you seen it? What did you think? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.